So, apart from the fact that you've got to grovel under my chair to get your computer out, how did you think about this morning? How did you approach it?
Well, I mean, when I was told the subject of this conference, Out of Chaos, I mean, the first thing that came to mind was that I know quite a lot about chaos, but I've never really managed to get out of it. I found that in reality, what I was looking at was, again, I was also reminded of my own childhood and how I got to where I am and what that happened. And in reality, we're all pretty chaotic. All lives, all human beings are kind of chaotic. We're all kind of unpredictable. And that really, there's lots of times when we make mistakes and we screw up and we do stuff that we regret. But in a way, when you look at a regret, when you look at something that where you've made a mistake, where you've done something wrong, a regret is only a regret because of the way you look at it in retrospect. Really, it's just a thing that happened out of chaos, out of a situation that you were in. And that was really the foundation, was this idea that we're always trying to redefine ourselves and change ourselves and be someone else, and a lot of the time we just kind of need to be the chaotic people that we already are.
Acceptance of self, then.
Yes, absolutely.
Right.
Yeah.
You may grovel for your
I'll grab my
computer.
notes because I could potentially just stand here and ramble, but if I stood here and rambled, we'd all be here until 3 o'clock this afternoon, which I'm sure none of you want. But I don't want to miss lunch, you know. So thank you for that. So I was born in North London, and just a stone's throw away from the old Arsenal Highbury Stadium. I don't know if I'm guessing some of you know Arsenal. And after about 3 different primary schools, I kind of realised that maybe this school thing possibly wasn't going to be for me. I loved learning, but frankly, this teaching thing was kind of getting on my tits. And then we moved from North London to this little tiny village in North Yorkshire. And North Yorkshire to North London is like being here right now to being on your own in a cupboard, speaking to your own reflection. Only your reflection is a little less insular. And don't get me wrong, I don't want to be mean to North Yorkshire. It's a really, really beautiful part of the world. And when I was 10, it really was quite wonderful. By the time I was 13, the realization that I was at least an hour away from anything remotely like civilization began to wear on me a little bit. And I was still really struggling at school. My handwriting was awful, and one day, I was about 14, my teacher sat me down and said, JP, I was called JP then, you're an A-star student, but with your handwriting like it is, you're going to fail. I thought, well, I've been failing at writing for about, 4 years old, 10 years now. I've got a decade of failing at writing. You know what? I'm pretty certain that I'm not going to get my handwriting just about right in the next couple of years ready for GCSEs. This handwriting thing that the teachers seemed to care so much about just didn't seem that important to me. I loved technology, what little there was of that in the 90s. But I just didn't care what I did. I just wanted to be working in this technology thing. I just wanted something in that. And in technology, it was amazing. They had these things called keyboards. I didn't have to write. I could type. So I decided to leave school at 14 and seek my future in IT. My parents were actually pretty supportive, but then my parents were puppeteers, so me saying I want to go into IT was like the child of an accountant saying I want to go and join the circus. And at 16, after I homeschooled myself for a year or so, I got a job working as a software engineer in this tiny little company in London. And I moved back to London. I moved back to London to my old childhood home as a lodger in my old house. This house was being rented out, and I was now a lodger in my old house, in my old childhood bedroom. There was a certain irony about starting my new adult life in my old childhood bedroom. Now, as you know, at least some of you, at 16 you are unbreakable. And I was that and some. But as you know, you're not unbreakable. And I wasn't. I was playing at adulthood. I was running faster than I ever could to keep up with these new adults that were my peers and colleagues. And it was hard work. Fast forward to just before my 19th birthday, and in the time between turning 18, thanks to the pre-financial crash world, I was now £25,000 in debt. I was still trying to keep up with my peer group, still playing at adulthood. The credit cards finally dried up, and after getting a new job, I managed to come to an arrangement with my creditors, thankfully. And I moved out to Windsor, which is just outside of London. And I got this nice new flat. The flat was more expensive than I could really afford, but I didn't admit that. I even redecorated it and had a nice house party to show all of my adult friends how grown up I was. But I couldn't really afford those either, but I was still playing at adulthood. 8 months on, and I lost that job pretty unexpectedly. And now I've defaulted on all of those arrangements, those things that I had with my creditors, the money that I owed, and I had no money for rent. And I'm on the phone to the bank, and they've just told me that because of my now credit status, they're going to actually have to close my bank account. It's only the bank account. You know what? It seemed like a really small thing, but at that moment I broke down in tears on the phone because I couldn't play anymore. I'd completely failed. I had no job and no money. I couldn't play at adulthood anymore. I was smack bang in an adult situation, and it was really shit. You spend your entire childhood wanting to grow up until you grow up and wish more than anything you could just go back to when life was simpler. So unemployed and broke, I moved back in with my dad in London. He was there now. They weren't renting it out anymore. And I was back in my old childhood bedroom. You see, I wasn't being myself. I was playing at being what I thought was an adult, trying to be a grown-up because I'd left school and started work. But what does that even mean? I don't think I even knew what being myself was. To be yourself, you actually have to know who you are. So I'd like everyone to stand up if that's okay. Could you all stand up for me? I know it's really annoying. It's just like, it's just getting comfy in my seat. So just stretch out, shake your arms, shake your legs. Now, if that wasn't uncomfortable enough, I want you to do something really terrifying for me. I realize I literally can't see any of you. Oh, look, there's quite a lot of you out there. Oh, that's how. What I'd like you to do that's terrifying is I'd like you to close your eyes. It's really freaky closing your eyes. What could those people, I hope you trust the people stood next to you. I'd like you all to really think about that question. Who are you? Who are you really? Who are you right now? Not who you want to be tomorrow. not who you want to be in 10 years' time. Who are you right now, here today, in this room, this minute, this second, right now? Who are you? Is this who you are to everyone else? Who else knows this person? Maybe lots of people know this person. Maybe no one does. Maybe just you. Open your eyes. Thank you very much. So sit back down again. Thank you. In facilitation, there's a thing we do when you've got a big group of people and you don't just want to have to shout all the time, other than wearing a microphone, which can help, but I often don't. Is you raise your hand, and the rule is if you see somebody else raising your hand, then everyone else raises their hand and shuts up. Works pretty well. It's like magic. The funny thing is when you're doing that in a large group is that a lot of the time people arrive late, so they don't know that rule that's been explained to everyone else. So you have like 20 people in a room that don't really know, but everyone's just stood there going, why has everyone got their hand in the air? And then, oh, I guess I'll just do it as well. And, oh, okay, I guess I did the right thing. It's quite funny. So I spent most of my life doing just that, trying to be the person that I wished I could be, the adult that I wanted to be, the grown-up, the person that had the career and the job and have the money and all of those things. The irony of it is that the closest I've ever come, and I don't really think many of us actually have all of those things, but the closest I've ever come to having any of those things was when I stopped giving a shit about having them. I love it. I love how you can just get a laugh in an audience of kids just by dropping a swear word. It's absolutely fantastic. One of these days you'll realize that all the people telling you not to swear are lying. They do it all the time. So I took a career break. Perhaps you could say that it was forced upon me somewhat as I was unemployed. And after that break, I did manage to find some new work, and I moved to Manchester, where I live now. And I ended up spending the next 13 years in a pretty bad relationship. One that wasn't great for me, and it wasn't great for my partner either. And I believe this was so because I became a we before I knew who me was. And then 2 years ago, when this relationship ended, I was stuck without the we. Who the hell was I? But this turned out to be quite an epic journey for me that has formed not only the foundation of my own identity, but also something that actually has grounded all of my professional work as well. And I think this is true for most people that have found some signs of success, is that actually this idea of professional and personal life is a fiction. It's something that has to be unified if we're going to be happy. So as I said, I really struggled at school. And I didn't know this at the time. I thought I was just really crap at writing. But it turns out that I'm dyspraxic and dysgraphic. So dysgraphia is what affected my handwriting. Imagine dyslexia, where you struggle with reading, but dysgraphia is about shaping the words on the page. It takes me a lot of effort to do that. And dyspraxia affects, well, a big range of things. I have to really think quite hard about what's left and right. I lose things all the time, and I can be a little bit clumsy. And one of the things that I really struggle with is actually tying my shoelaces. And any situation where I had to take my shoes off, like going through security at the airport, for example, or changing at the gym, would cause me massive anxiety. You know, how humiliating. People would see that I couldn't tie my shoelaces. I'd untie my shoes and then spend 20 minutes just trying to work out how to get the damn things to go back together again. And then I discovered these silicone laces. They're fantastic. slot them in, and you turn your shoes into slide-on shoes. Now, at the time, I used to wear white ones because even better, they just looked like normal laces. No one would know that I couldn't tie my shoelaces. And then one of them snapped as I was taking my shoes off going through security at the airport, and I was mortified. Everyone was looking at me. Everyone could see that I couldn't tie my shoelaces, because obviously everyone going through security only cared about whether or not I could tie my shoelaces. Only they weren't, and they didn't. There's actually a really nice paradox here. You know, those days, I think as teenagers, you might have experienced this potentially, when you're getting ready in the morning and you notice a great big zip right there. And you're like, oh God, how can I possibly leave the house today? And then every time you look at it, by the time you're actually going out the door and you catch a glance of your face in the mirror, it's now basically your entire face, this spot. And then you try to sort of like, oh God, I've had to do something about it. And then, oh God, it's bleeding. Oh my God. And then when you finally leave, literally everyone that looks at you, the thought on their mind is, oh my God, I don't even see this person anymore. All I see is spot. It's like, that's all they must be looking at. But that's interesting. The nice paradox here is that we all spend all of this time thinking that everyone is looking at us and everyone is judging us. But they're not. Because what's everyone doing? Everyone is spending all their time thinking about how everyone is judging them and looking at them. So this silicone lace snapped. And I started looking online for replacements, as you do. And I found this set of rainbow laces. And I put them on. And at work the next day, someone commented. They said, oh, they look pretty cool. I like those laces. And I said, oh, they're in fact, what's really funny is people actually don't wonder about the laces. They stare at them wondering how on earth I've been able to tie my laces in this perfect rainbow. They just stare at them like it's some kind of mad puzzle. And I was just like, oh, they're silicone. Look, this is how you just kind of slide them in. I said, oh, they look really good. And I said, it's actually because I can't tie my shoelaces at all. I just said it. I remember just thinking, I just fucking said it. I just told them that I can't tie my shoelaces. But the universe didn't explode. It was just okay. And you know what? The world really doesn't care if you can tie your shoelaces or not. Because the world actually has big adult problems. And you have big teenager problems. One of the things I found is that when we're born, we're as authentic as we will ever be. We have no shame, we have no expectations, we're just us. Little baby sat there pooping and vomiting and eating. As we grow, we begin to develop self-awareness. Now that's kind of useful. It's kind of useful to have some self-awareness. But with it comes this problem, which is that we suddenly become aware of all of the things that we don't like about us. An awareness of all of those expectations, the expectations of family, friends, teachers, society, and the gap between those expectations and the reality. And we start to create the image of the person that we wish we were. The, if only I had that, could do that, could sing that, could dance that, could play that, could be that person. And as much as possible, our outward self projects that person. But the gap between who we are and how we are just gets bigger and bigger. you have to keep up appearances, maintain that other you, keep the stuff you don't want people to know about hidden. But there's nothing more exhausting than not being yourself. The funny thing is we think a lot about being authentic, as if that's something that we have to try to be. But we all started off authentic. We all started off as us. We spend more time trying to hide the things we don't like about ourselves or the things that we think other people will judge us for than we do being us. After my relationship broke down, I had to work out who the hell me was. And I started to look for role models, people that I could look up to, that seemed to be authentic and kind of have all of those things that I was looking for. But the thing that I forgot, and I think that many people do forget, is that the best version of you is still you, with all of your broken bits. But those things, like the sculptor's chisel, shape your life. They define who you are. You will never be without them. They are actually your superpowers. You do your broken bits better than anyone else, and you own them. They don't own you. Life is not about redefining yourself. It's about finding where your boundaries are and just accepting them. In a sculpture, its boundaries are what make it beautiful. And they can be what makes you beautiful as well. Over the last 2 years, as I have reconnected with myself and discovered my superpowers, I've had more success and, more importantly, have made more close friends than I ever had before. You see, when I asked you to close your eyes and think about who you are right now, that's because, unlike a sculpture, many of your boundaries do change. Who you are does change over time. The trick is noticing that and aligning yourself with it and not fighting it. When you fight who you are, you waste your energy on being that other person. And it's harder and harder to be the wonderful person you already are. Go out into the world and be you. Be your best you. You can't be anyone else. Be the sculpture of your own lives. The sculptor of your own lives. And celebrate your superpowers, because you do them better than anyone else. I'd like you all to stand up again, if that's all right. I know. Oh, God. Who the hell got this guy in? It's making us stand up. God, he sucks. God. All right, so let's test silence. Thank you. So I'd like you to put your arms out to each side like this. Try not to smack the person next to you in the face. I love it when I say that. Immediately everyone just punches everyone nearby. And again, if you can just now, what I'd like you to do is bring the first hand here, around here, like that, and the other one here. All right, now squeeze. And now stop. You just gave yourselves a hug. It's the first step to loving who you are. You are wonderful. Go out into the world and show them how wonderful you are. Thank you very much. Oh. Hello.
Just while you all settle down, and before I invite Levi to come to the stage, I'm just going to ask John one further question, which is that this voyage of self-discovery, it obviously takes time, but how much courage does it take?
It's an interesting question. I think that for me, it was it's funny we talk about chaos here, but it came out of chaos. It was like almost accidental. I think that it takes a certain amount of courage, to do something small, like just choose to wear rainbow laces instead of white ones. I didn't really think that much about it. I just thought, they look kind of cool, I'll go with them. But I think that the interesting thing is that there is that step. But the thing is it can be small steps. Like, it's terrifying to do a bungee jump, but it's not so scary to just, to jump off the climbing frame. Small steps, little steps, anything you can do to align yourself with that person that you think you are and learn about that is going to make changes. And you know what you'll find is that people out there, they accept you. They just do. You will have and find so much support because we are drawn to people that are aligned with themselves, that are authentic. They're those role models that I looked for. Those people are people already doing that. And that's the best thing. You will find help, so much help out there once you start to do that. So I think that, it needs courage. The first step's always scary, but you're going to have help once you kick off and once you start.
And I think that's one of the most interesting things, that people battle all sorts of issues, but the moment you fess up, you'll always find somebody going, good heavens, that happened to me.
Yeah,
and actually
absolutely.
then the conversation becomes mutual and mutually supportive.
Completely.
So don't ever think you're on your own, because you're not. So be your own person, but you're also not on your own.
Yeah.
John,
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.